already know this is gonna fall. I already know it. This isn't gonna end well. Oh god. Oh. Oh god. Well, alright. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor, and today we are going to be talking about the very large stack of books that are sitting next to me. And that is because we are going to be discussing the 21 books that I want to be reading from my physical TBR in 2021. So I did this video last year. We all know how 2020 went, and I ended up reading, I think, maybe 4 or 5 books off that list. So not terrible. But this year I feel like I was a little bit more focused on what I wanted to read, what I was interested in reading, and just made things a little bit better of a challenge for myself. So I think this year my goal will be a little bit easier to fulfill, to read all 21 of these books. Speaking of goals, my actual goal for physical reading this year for Goodreads is 75 books. Last year I read 102, which is the most I've ever calculated reading since I think ever. So I was really excited about that, but a lot of that of course was due to being stuck at home, working from home, not being able to do a lot of things, as we all know. So I'm trying to be more realistic this year and stick to what I normally know that I'm able to definitely hit around for my reading goals. So without further ado, hopefully by the end of 2021 I'll be able to come back to this video and tell you that I've read all 21 of these books. But that being said, let's go ahead and discuss which ones I'm hoping to read in 2021. Starting with the first book that I'm actually currently reading, this is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This, of course, is a very, very beloved book here on BookTube, and this is, of course, about shadow hunters and a world of demons and angels. I'm currently about halfway through the book right now, and it's about what I expected for a book written in 2007. It's very angsty, it's very dramatic. It's written very young, I think, for reading nowadays. I also think if I had read this when it was at its height of when it first came out, I think I would also have probably appreciated it a lot more. I think being 27, almost 28 and reading this now, it's a little bit much. I am enjoying it, however. I do want to continue in the series just because I do know this is something that a lot of people enjoy, and then hopefully I can catch up then to other of Cassie Clare's books. But yeah, this is about what I expected. Next, we have another fantasy book that I've been really wanting to read, and that is The Light Between Worlds by Lauren Weymouth. And this I heard described by Haley in Bookland. Is that her username? I'll link her down below. But this is apparently a kind of a Narnia-esque people traveling between worlds kind of story, which always really intrigues me. I love Narnia so much. So it seems like a really great winter type read, which is why I'm hopefully trying to get to it within the next couple months, if not sooner. But that's kind of all I know about it, and that's kind of all I want to know. So there you go. Okay, next we have a couple of nonfiction, which I'll speed through pretty quickly, are self-help-ish. You guys know that I love self-help books. I get a lot of nonfiction books in a lot of my hauls, if you guys have watched any of those, and they're just things I really try to read. They don't get read as often as they probably should, but I'm hoping to change that this year. And the 3 that I'm wanting to get to, 2 are by Lisa Turcaset. And that is her latest book, Forgiving What You Can't Forget, and I think one of her first books, which is Uninvited. I've tried to read this book so many times, it's not even funny. So this is the year that I'm telling myself that I will read this book. And then of course this is her newest release that came out the end of last year. I'm really excited about this one. Her last book is somewhere here on these shelves that I can't find. But that one came out a couple years ago and I loved that. I read it through a really hard time in my life and just it really, really spoke to me. So I love her writing, I love her stuff, and I really want to get to both of these. the other one that I want to read, which hopefully is a quick one, I've started this as well a couple times and just haven't finished it, but this is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. If you guys aren't familiar with those, it's a study psychology into 5 areas and ways which people show and express love. So it's things like gifts, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, and I never can remember the other one. Acts of service? Did I say that already? Anyways, oh no, wait. Words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, physical touch. There you go. It was on the back. Yeah, so this is one that I've heard most of my life growing up was kind of this mentality. So I just thought I'd read his book. I know a lot of people have read it and really enjoyed it. So there you go. Next, for a sequel that I really want to get to this year, this is Sea Witch Rising by Sarah Henning. I read Sea Witch last year and actually really enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook and then kind of read along with it. And this is basically an origin story for Ursula. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was one of those books that after I put it down, it kind of has stuck with me since then, and this is the sequel. The book left off on a bit of an interesting cliffhanger for the first one, so I do want to pick this up, see how the story continues. And yeah, I read a lot of Ursula mermaid type books last year, the beginning of last year, so I want to continue the trend in this year. Couple recent releases from last year that I didn't get a chance to get to that I want to get to this year. The first is All This Time by Mickey Daughtry and Rachel Lippincott. This is the authors of 5 Feet Apart, which became that movie with Cole Sprouse. I loved and read the movie and the book and was so enthralled with the both of them, so I really think this one will be cute. This one is about a guy and a girl, okay, hold on, I'm just gonna read. They're breaking up, a couple, on their night of their graduation party, and then their car crashes, and when the guy wakes up, the girl is dead. So he has to kind of work through that and kind of come to terms, I think, with a lot of things. I think there might be a time traveling element. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really want to know a lot going into this. I typically, with most books, don't like knowing a lot going into it because I feel like it kind of ruins the experience. So apologies if you come here for reading review type things and I give you very little to talk about with the books, but that's kind of my mentality with it. So there you go. Another new release that came out last year that I didn't get to was Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth. This came out pretty early last year. I love Veronica Roth's writing. I've read pretty much everything she's come out with, and I've really enjoyed it. So this is a new adult story, basically about the one true savior kind of mentality. It's got superheroes in it, kind of, I think, different types of that. Like I said, again, one that I don't really want to know too much about. I haven't really heard a whole lot about this in general. I don't know if this got as much publicity as some of her other books, but I love her writing. I want to see what it's all about, so there you go. Okay, so let's talk about The Midnight Library. This is a book that came out, I believe, middle to end of last year, and now it seems like everyone is completely obsessed with it. I feel like I was a little ahead of the curve because I definitely bought it before everyone else did, but whatever. So this is about kind of a magical library where you can go through and live different lives of like different choices in your life. Like if you had done this, this is what would have happened with your life, I believe. So I'm really excited about this. I love the kind of idea of different timelines in your life, and if you made this choice, how different would your life be? Very intrigued with that whole concept, and I've heard really good things about it. It's not super long, so I'm hoping to get to it pretty early on in this year, and think I would really like it. 2 more releases that came out last year that I still have yet to read. I was really bad at my new releases, picking them up and reading them, so that's kind of partly my goal for this year, is to catch up on a lot of releases from last year, 2 of which are Midnight Sun and Sky Hunter by Marie Lu. Again, love a lot of Marie Lu's books. Warcross was one of my favorite books that I read when it came out. I was completely obsessed with that. The second one, not so much. The first one, so great. But yeah, this one, again, I really don't know a whole lot about, don't really want to know a whole lot about. This cover is beautiful. So this is definitely pretty high up on my anticipated reads list for the beginning of this year. And of course, we can't talk about 2020 without talking about Midnight Sun. This, of course, obviously is the very much anticipated Edward's perspective of Twilight. I've heard pretty mixed reviews about this, as I think Twilight is kind of a very divisive type of books for some people. I loved Twilight back in the day, like so obsessed with it. I actually reread Twilight last year in anticipation of reading this, and then I just never got around to picking it up. So it's a hefty book, but her reading tends to go by pretty quick. I am really excited to dive back into the world again, similar to The City of Bones. It does read a little bit like a 2007's early 2000s book, so I'll be interested to kind of see how she maybe has updated that, if she even has it all for this book. And yeah, I'm just gonna be excited to be back in the world. I think it'll be good. Okay, a couple of really random backlist books that I've been wanting to get to for forever and I just haven't. The first one is All Rights Reserved by Gregory Scott Klatzis. This is about words costing money, so you have to pay for what you say, which I think in this day and age would be a very interesting concept to read about. And I've just been intrigued with it for so long and I just have not picked it up. So definitely pretty high on the list for this one, as well as Black Hearts. I think this is an origin story for Blackbeard. It's definitely a pirate-esque type of story. I also have the sequel, which I think is Black Souls, which I'd also like to get to this year. And yeah, I just think pirates and fantasy is really calling my name lately, so excited to pick this one up. A couple more self-help books that I really would like to get to this year. The first is The Gift of Forgiveness by Katherine Schwarzenegger Pratt. This, of course, is the wife of Chris Pratt, daughter of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got this book the very beginning of last year and have tried to read it again multiple times and just think it would be such a good book to pick up. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. That's my Stitch pajamas. I'm trying to hide my laundry. Apologies. But yeah, this is something I'm really interested in reading. It's such a short book. My mom read it in like one sitting and said it was really great, so I'm hoping I can do the same as well. I just need to prioritize it. Along with that, this is one that I've seen a lot of people speak very highly of. This is Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen. This, I think, for me is going to be something that's going to be really impactful because for those of you guys that don't know, I do struggle with some mental health and anxiety and just very, very runaway thoughts. So I thought this would be a good one to try. Again, short, quick, which tends to be my favorite kind of self-help books. And I just think Stopping the Spiral of Toxic Thoughts is a really great way to start 2021. We're almost done, I promise. Okay. Next, we have yet another 2020 release. I think this came out in 2020 or maybe 2019. Regardless, this is Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I've read, I think, all but one Ruta Sepetys book, and I've loved all of them. So this is, of course, her latest release. This, I think, is set in Cuba? Spain, Madrid? I don't know. Anyways, she writes the most amazing kind of off the beaten path historical fiction that I just find so interesting. Like, she takes these tiny little pieces of history that are so under notice and makes these beautiful stories about them. So this is a very chunky book, but I'm very excited to read it and think it's going to be amazing and probably make me cry. Okay, and the last few books that I'm definitely trying to prioritize this year. I always say I want to read more classics, but I never prioritize them over some of my fantasy or contemporary or romance books. So this year I picked out 4 that I think I will probably most likely be able to read through and accomplish. The first is Romeo and Juliet by, of course, William Shakespeare. This is one I read back in high school but haven't really read since, and I love the story of Romeo and Juliet. It's such a classic lovers story. I mean, it's Romeo and Juliet, so I thought this would be a pretty quick one to read. It's super large text. It's, you know, a play, right? So I think it'll be pretty easy to get through. Like I said, because I've read it before, I know the story. I think it'll be a pretty easy one to get through. The next one is one, again, more of a childhood favorites that I'd like to reread as an adult, and that is Alice in Wonderland by, oh my gosh, what? Lewis Carroll. Wow. I do know that, I swear. This is a beautiful edition that I've been collecting. I've actually had this one since childhood. It's illustrated by Junior Library, and this is a book that I definitely read as a child, but I feel like is something that I don't really remember. Obviously, I've seen the Disney movies, I've seen multiple adaptations of this kind of story, but the physical original story by Lewis Carroll, I haven't read in years, so I just thought this would be a really fun one to pick up and revisit. It also has Through the Looking Glass, which I feel like I'll just read both in one sitting. But yeah, I'm really excited to reread this. I think it'll be really great. And yeah, another classic I can check off the list. All right, 2 more classics, both of which I've never fully completed before, but have been really interested in. First of all is Frankenstein. I've tried to read through this the last 2 Octobers and have gotten maybe a third of the way through. I've been dying to read this, so I think this October I'm finally going to make it happen. I really enjoy the story. It's pretty easy to follow, given I think this was written several hundred years ago. But this obviously, of course, the classic Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I just, again, want to read more classics. I want to know origin stories of adaptations and things, because I feel like everything nowadays is kind of a copy or knockoff of the originals. So I want to know the original monster story, and yeah, hopefully this year will be the year. All right. Second to last book, we are almost done. The last classic that I want to read this year is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is a book that's always intrigued me, and I feel like I know the general idea of this story, but I've never really fully immersed myself in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so I feel like it'd be really interesting for me to kind of actually know what the story is about. And yeah, it's, again, just a story that's really always intrigued me, and figured it's hopefully not too long. It doesn't look too long. But yeah, hopefully this will be the year that I make this happen. Wish me luck. Okay, and the last book, my 21st book that I'm trying to read in 2020 is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. So my stipulation for reading this is the following. I would like to read the entire Mortal Instruments City of Blank stories before getting to this one. So with that being said, technically I have to read the entirety of City of Bones series before I can get to this, but given how quickly I've gotten through the first one, I think I'll be able to get through that series and then start on this one, and then hopefully read these 3, Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess, and then I'll kind of be, I feel like, at a pretty good place with the series going into next year to kind of start the Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, all of those books, as well as the Chain of Iron Gold series that she has. So yeah, like I said, I've just heard so much about Cassandra Clare on BookTube over the years that this was the year I finally was like, screw it, I'm gonna try them out, see what I think, and yeah, hopefully I enjoy them. We'll see. But yeah, that is everything, all 21 books I'm hopefully planning to read in 2020. Obviously, I will hopefully and plan to read much more than that, but those are the 21 that I'm definitely planning on prioritizing. Wish me luck. Send me your recommendations down below of which ones you think I should prioritize, maybe some of the books you plan on reading in 2021. I love getting your guys' recommendations, as always, in the comments down below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it so I know to make more. Subscribe to see more of my face, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!